Moving towards our next topic, that is highest ranking Maoist leader surrendered. This is related to syllabus of your GS paper 3, left wing extremism in India. Also, the context of this topic is that in an unprecedented blow to left wing extremism, Thippiri Tirupathi alias Devuji, the 62-year-old highest ranking member of the banned outfit, the Communist Party of India Maoist, and this person has surrendered before the Telangana Police as per the various media reports. Also, you would be already aware of the fact that Ministry of Home Affairs and Honorable Minister of Home Affairs has made a target to eliminate this left-wing extremism by 31st March 2026. So in line of that itself, security forces has killed various leaders of the Maoist or Naxalism in India. Along with that, several of them has surrendered also in front of the government. Now, if you see the data related to left-wing extremism in India, so as of the 3rd February 2026, based on the reply that was given in the parliament, that it says that the list of left-wing extremism affected districts has came down to 8 only, 1 being in Odisha, 1 being in Jharkhand and 6 being in Chhattisgarh itself. So this particular number has now reduced to 8 only in year 2026, whereas it was 180 districts which were impacted by left-wing extremism in the year 2013. So this kind of graph can also made by you, or that you can use in the actual answers that you are writing in the mains examination. Small bar graph can be made in the right side of the page showing the number of districts which are impacted, and then you can also show the decline. Now, if we try to understand what is meaning of Naxalism in Indian context, so first of all, the term Naxalism is deriving its name from the Naxalbari village in West Bengal, and in that village initially it was a landlord-tenant issue that slowly and gradually culminated into a full-blown armed insurgency movement, and which grappled various other states like West Bengal, apart from West Bengal, the Odisha, Chhattisgarh, etc. And what is the objective of these Naxalites? Actually, they want to overthrow the government, and the reason why they want to do so is because of the fact that they consider that the current establishment and government is serving only the interest of elite class. They consider government as exploitative, oppressive, and they want to establish the state based on the communist principles, based on the whatever the principles that were given by the Mao. And mainly they attack in the economic infrastructure. There are various other activities that they do, for example guerrilla warfare, attack on security forces, extortion, intimidation and extortion, etc. that is being done. And if you talk about the causes of the rise in the left-wing extremism, what are the major causes why we have witnessed consistent attack on the infrastructure, deaths of security forces related to left-wing extremism? First of all, if you see this data, there has been a consistent decline with regard to the number of deaths, incident and attack on economic infrastructure in last few years, especially this is the data from 2013 to 22. That is based on the reply that is given in the Ministry of Home Affairs that says that consistently there has been decline with regard to the deaths, attacks on economic infra. Now, what is the cause? The first important is Jal, Jungle and Jameen. That after the independence, there were various measures that were taken by the government to go for the land reforms, so that there can be a redistribution that can be done. The society, the people who were not having the proper land, at least they can get some land based on which they can do at least bare minimum subsistence farming, or they can do bare minimum agriculture with the help of which they can fulfill their own needs. But for example, the land ceiling policy that was there, and under which the maximum holding that a person can actually hold, that was fixed by the government. But here also there are a lot of corruptions that we actually saw, that people have transferred their land to their relatives, their servants, etc. to evade land ceiling. And there was no action that was taken. There were several primitive peoples, poor people who could not get the land. So they felt cheated, they felt alienated, and that is one of the reasons they took up the arm. Also, encroachment and occupation of government and community lands. For example, there was a traditional relationship between primitive people and the forest. For example, they were dependent on the forest for their bare minimum needs of timber or the food, etc. But with various laws that came, for example, Forest Right Act, etc., that restricted the use of the forest resources by these primitive people, that further alienated them and they took up the arms. Also, disruption of age-old tribal forest relationship that we were saying, that these tribes were actually understanding the needs of the forest and they were also using the resources from the forest in a sustainable manner. But for example, there has been restrictions of the use of the resources. Also, there has been various restrictions related to the mining activities that can be done in these areas, etc. Okay. Also, after the PISA Act came, there has been the increased role of Gram Sabha, etc. for the mine leasing, etc. But that also is not being done in an effective manner. The development deficit that is there, for example, the unemployment rate that is consistently very high, the poverty or even the basic resources we are witnessing that they are these primitive people or the tribal population is not even getting the bare minimum resources. That is also impacting them. And that, if you see, this is the data from the NASA Socioeconomic Data and Application Center, mapping poverty, a decade of deprivation across Indian states. You can see the states like Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, etc., where we are witnessing a huge amount of poverty, a huge level of poverty. They are also the districts or the states where we are witnessing very high cases of the left wing extremism. Historically, these were the hotbeds of the left wing extremism in India. So that is what we have to understand, that there has been a consistent development deficits, there has been bureaucratic apathy, there has been lack of proper educational facilities, there has been improper health facilities, the unemployment was very high, the people were not having even the bare minimum employment resources, and that has alienated them, and that is also one of the reasons why they took up the arm. Also, social exclusion, for example, violation of human rights, that is time and again witnessed. If, for example, in without any proper intention they have used the forest resources, or there has been various cases of violences, alleged violences by the security forces, or the violences that they are facing for the allegations of giving information to the security forces. So that is also one of the cause. Abuse of dignity of life, that they do not have even basic bare minimum resources with the help of which they can consistently have a dignified life, which is also part of fundamental right provided under part 3 of the constitution and provided under article 21 of the constitution, that provides for right to dignified life and property. Also, disconnect with the mainstream society, that they are completely alienated from the rest of the world, that they don't understand that what is the needs of these tribal population. We are not able to understand that because we have very poor relations with them, we have very poor interactions with them, we are not understanding, we are not taking feedback from them. Also, discontent against government, when there is very high discontent that okay, government is not helping them in addressing the poverty, government is not helping them in addressing the unemployment, government is not helping in improving the health and educational indicators. So that is also is alienating them. And you can also see the socio-economic fault line, the 69 districts that are illiterate, the 20% of poor and 1.12% of poor and 23.3% of the households who don't get 2 square meals. Again, here you can see the areas where we have the such huge lack of basic necessities, poverty, illiteracy, etc. So that also makes them alienated and they take up the arms. The governance deficit, for example, the bureaucracy, which is incompetent, ill-trained and poorly motivated public personnels that are there. Bureaucratic apathy that we witness, that if there is a scheme, people don't understand the needs of these primitive people. They are not motivated to provide them in an effective manner. Mismanagement and corruption that is there. Poor implementation of laws and schemes that are there. All this also creates a governance deficit and people take up the arms. What are the government initiatives which has been taken to address this particular issue of left-wing extremism in last 1 decade? For example, National Policy and Action Plan that came in 2015 that provided for multi-pronged strategy in the areas of security, development, ensuring rights and entitlements of the local communities, that whatever the basic rights are there, they are legally provided under Forest Right Acts, PISA Act, etc. scheme of modernization of police forces plus fortification of police station in affected districts, so that in case of any attacks there is less loss or collateral damage that the security forces should face. Assistance to central agencies for left-wing extremism management schemes like Central Armed Police Forces, Commando Battalion for Resolute Action, Cobra, and Indian Air Force. Also, there has been a Samadhan strategy that government gave that provides for 8 pillars of fighting Maoism. S stand for smart leadership, A for aggressive strategy, M for motivation and training, A for actionable intelligence, D for dashboard based key performance indicators or KPIs, that whether they are improving on education, health, etc. or not. Also use technology, harness technology for taking actions based on the actionable intelligence that is being provided to them. Action plan for each theater, each area which is the hotbed of left-wing extremism. Also no access to financing, we need to curb them effectively. And also here the especially the urban Naxalism, which helps in the intimidation or which helps in an unnecessary false perception building, and that also helps in financing, etc. That also needs to be addressed. Then surrender come rehabilitation policy for Naxalites in affected areas. That is again motivating the several people who have taken arms earlier, that they leave the arm, and because of which they can now get the support from the government to reintegrate in the society in an effective manner. Also focusing on the infrastructure creation via additional central assistance scheme and road requirement plan scheme. Universal Service Obligation Fund, that is supported a scheme of mobile services to increase the mobile connectivity for building infrastructure, for building towers, etc. Then schemes like Roshni, skill development, aspirational to improve governance as well as provide skills. Okay. Also, there has been schemes like Nai Roshni. There has been schemes like Pota Cabin for the educational improvement. ठीक है, छू लो आसमान, नन्हे परिंदे, तमन्ना scheme. Effectively implementing provisions of PISA Act 1996 on provide priority, that provides more rights to the Gram Sabha. What should be done? What should be the way forward? First of all, there can be again targeted security operations, and that should be based on the actionable intelligence, and for that there should be more collaboration and cooperation that should be witnessed between the different state police forces as well as various other security forces. Also rehabilitation and reintegration, that should be the possible. So most important factor, that whenever we any particular Naxalite who is giving up the arm, there should be focus on reintegrating them effectively in the overall society in an effective manner, and that will support the former extremists and bring back innocent individuals back, so that they can live their normal lives. Also empowering local peace ambassadors that identify and support peacemakers, foster communication, and encourage the community involvement. Socio-economic development, for example, invest in infrastructure, jobs, education, and healthcare. That will also help in bringing them back in the overall society. Then winning hearts and minds of the people, WAM strategy, that we are not only limited on taking the security related measures, but we are also listening them properly. We are understanding their problems. We are also taking proper actions to address their grievances in an effective manner. Ecological and sustainable development, for example, focus on sustainable development and community development. Comprehensive approach, for example, we can combine security, development, and community initiatives that can actually help in further tackling the left-wing extremism in the districts where it is still left. Then the DNA approach, that can be also utilized, that you can write in various places in your answers. That first of all, we should have a dialogue, whether it is at formal or informal level. Then negotiations, that with the help of negotiations we can arrive at a mutually shared worldview, that this is the path that we should choose, and then accordingly we should take the action, that is whether developmental outcomes can come, growth opportunity provisions can be there, and whatever the outcome will be there, if it is not achieving the intended objectives, accordingly there can be course correction that can be done, and accordingly the further decisions or the actions that can be taken. This is the area that you can see that consistently from left-wing extremism there has been a lot of questions that has been asked in the mains examination, and this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic.